If only you were thicker, then we could cuddle for warmth. Welcome back. Today, while I sit out here in the snow, we have a fun sword today. This is the Swordier SWMZ-1004, or as I'm going to call it now, the Generation 1 Type XVIIIc. If you haven't been following Swordier, they've released an upgraded version of this sword in particular that has dimensions that probably suit a Type XVIIIc a bit closer to the models that we still have out there, the popular models, as well as extant pieces that we have in the museum, like the Alexandrian swords in the Met. So this sword is their Generation 1 model, and the reason why I'm still doing a review on this sword is because it is still available on the Swordier site. And honestly, there's a lot about this sword to like. Now, before we really jump into it, if you haven't seen it already, Matthew Jensen and I did a collaboration video, a series of videos, particularly on this particular sword and the Albion Mercenary and some of the controversy that surrounded about that. And if you haven't seen it yet, you could check it out. I'll have links in the description, and you probably see it up here somewhere for both my video and Matt's video that we did on this sword in comparison with the Albion Mercenary, so definitely check that out. One of the big key differences between the Albion Mercenary and this one is, besides a lot of the hilt furniture looking the same, there are some differences in the blade geometry itself. I'm not going to go into great detail about it because I did so in the videos we already did for these swords, but the geometry of the sword definitely fits the Type 18 category. There's some debate on whether or not it's a Type 18C category, but it's definitely a Type 18. Part of the oak shot typology shows this very convex grind towards the top, as you'll see right up through here. That convex grind is very typical of Type 18s, and that, unlike the Type 15, which have parallel straight lines to a point, these ones have a convex grind, especially up here near the top towards the tip. So it's definitely an 18. When you start looking at it from an 18C perspective, though, it is a bit thin in profile. It still has the Type 18C profile. It's just a very thin profile compared to contemporary models in the market, as well as extant historical pieces. This would be on a bit more of the thin side, coming in at just a little over, I think, 2.5 inches, if I recall correctly. So it's a bit thin. So I would say this is probably a bit on the wider side for like a Type 18B, and maybe on a type thinner side for a Type 18C, but it definitely still is an 18C. Now, one of the issues that I think we have is Swordier and their interpretation with some of their sword blades, because they have another model out there, the SWMZ-1008, which they do call a Type 15. The issue is the Type 15 they have is using the exact same blade, and this blade itself is not a Type 15 for a couple reasons. Obviously, the convex grind is different. The point is very, very thin and narrow, and if this was a Type 15, it would not serve the purpose of a Type 15. And that's one of the things that I know the oak shot typology really brings in, and why some of the swords are classified the way they are is for the purpose that they served and why they fit in particular categories. This is definitely a cut and thrust style blade, not a thrusting centric blade like a Type 15. With all that preamble out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the sword itself. We're gonna start with the scabbard. This is actually probably one of my favorite scabbards from Swordier. One of the reasons why is the typical sword itself having a black grip, as well as this really neat rain flap. I don't know what we'd want to call it, rain guard, I guess. The contrasting color of this almost tan looking scabbard with the darker tan rain guard and the black leather wrap actually really sets it off. At first, I wasn't really sure I was gonna like it, but I do. I think it really comes together very, very nice. It actually looks really, really nice. I do believe it is like the genuine leather that they normally use. It is a bit thin. I have it hanging up on my sword rack, and some of the leather over here is already starting to get scratched and beat up and torn a little bit, so you can see the under layers of the leather, because it's not the most robust. It is definitely more of a thin leather coating, but it does look very nice. The risers for the belt attachment are in a nice position. They stand out, and I really do like the metal chape here. The metal chape has this little teardrop looking pattern on it, which I've seen on other pieces. I'm not entirely sure the historicity of this particular type of chape. I believe I've seen it in some historical pieces, but to be honest, I can't quite recall them at the moment, so I'll just say it's very nice for what it is, and it is something a little different. It does add a little bit of class to the sword itself, and I really, really like it. It is indeed a wood scabbard, a wood line scabbard. As I pull that sword out of here, you'll see it is they do the exact same thing they did before, where they put some sort of I don't know if it's fake ray skin, rubber tape. It's definitely like a dimpled tape or plastic or something like that, that does aid in the retention of the sword. And I do like it for what it serves, because it does hold it in fairly tight. Unless you're in an area where the temperature, you know, fluxes a whole lot, you might have a little bit of not warpage, but the scabbard will shrink and contract and expand depending on the heat. This was very, very tight when I got it. In the summer, it seems to expand and gets very, very loose, but now in the winter, this thing is so tight, it's almost hard to get out. So you definitely have some expanding and contracting based on the weather itself, but the scabbard is really, really nice for what it is. It is a bit chunky though. If the rest of the sword is really thin, the scabbard makes up for it being very, very thick. Probably one of the thickest scabbards that I have, which isn't necessarily historical, but it is still a very nice scabbard. The stitching on the back is flat, and honestly, you don't even notice it. Like, you could feel it with your fingers, but it doesn't bulge in any areas. So this is probably one of my favorite scabbards that Swordier has ever done. It is simple but elegant, and the contrasting color that they have with it is just really, really nice. It would just be a little nicer if they thinned it up a little bit so it wasn't such a thick scabbard. Moving back to the blade itself, the handle construction is really nice. They use this scent stopper pommel that is peened on the top. The peen itself is quite nice. There's not really any errant hammer marks that I can see on this thing, and I think it's very elegant. One of the things in comparison with the Albion that they've done a little bit different is they allow a lot of their peen to be noticeable. It's almost a peen block, not quite, because a peen block was separate, but it definitely acts as a nub, whereas Albion, when they do theirs and they peen it, they polish this flat so you can't even see it. Now, you can definitely see on their pommel that there is a very prominent little nub here where the peen is, but it is shaped in a nice pattern, almost like a diamond square pattern. It has different facets on it. It's actually quite nice for what they tried to do. They stitch the leather on the back. I'm not sure. At first I wasn't sure how to feel about it, but because it is so flush, you don't notice it too much. I mean, you can feel it in your hand, but it's not a problem. You don't feel any discomfort with it. I did notice on mine here at the top of the first riser, there is a bit of a bulge, and I don't know if you'll be able to make it out that well, but it's where the leather is stitched together. I have a feeling that with some use, that could come loose. Moving on down through the scabbard, this is one of the things that, this is either love it or hate it. If you've seen Shadiversity and their video on this particular sword, I can't remember if, I know Shad hated it, I don't remember if Tyrant hated it, but they did not like this leather rain flap. Now, there's no reason why, you know, it's a good or bad thing. If you haven't seen the video, you can check it out. I'll put it up here, and I'll also put it in the description of the video as well, because they did a good video for this sword, talking about its virtues. But it's definitely preference only. But one of the reasons why I like it is because this made this sword very unique. If you don't like it, you can get rid of it. I think Shadiversity cut it off entirely, so they just got rid of it, and it looks fine. And they definitely got rid of it in their upgraded model, which I find to be a little sad, because this was something that not many swords on the production market actually do. So this really sets it off, and I think it adds a little bit of class to it. Again, that's my own personal preference, but I really like it. You can fold it up a little bit. It has this horned upward swept, I think it's called a horned, but this upward swept crossguard with a little bit of a central ridge, which normally I wouldn't like, because I generally do German longsword and it encourages a lot of thumbing the blade, and these ridges tend to get a little bit, I don't know, cause a little bit of discomfort in your thumb when you're reaching over them in order to thumb the blade. But this little rain flap here really just does away with all of that, and you don't have to worry about it. So I think it complements it really, really well. Some people like this ridge. I personally like it when they sand it down a little bit. But this is a popular guard. It's actually probably one of my favorite guards on any kind of longsword. I like this upswept hilt. I have it on the majority of the swords I have this particular crossguard, because it's just one of my favorites. They're all made of stainless steel, so you don't have to worry about them rusting or anything like that, which does make it pretty nice. Now let's talk about the blade. While I mentioned the blade itself is a little thinner than what is typical on a Type 18C, at least in the production models we have so far, as well as extant museum pieces, the blade has quite a bit of distal taper. It starts here at the base at 5.34 millimeters. I took another measurement here about halfway, and it goes down to 5.05 millimeters. So it doesn't taper very much for the first half of the blade. But in the second half, especially near the tip, it goes down considerably, because when I get all the way down here to about right an inch above the tip is where I generally take the measurement, it is only 1.41 millimeters in diameter. This thing is very, very, very narrow. And that comes in a little bit to talking about the point. The point of this sword, as I'll try to put it up here, is thin. I mean, needle thin. When you look at this thing, it practically disappears. This is where I don't quite think it fits either Type 18C or 15A, and they do use this blade on both their models. Not saying it wasn't a type that could have been a Type 18. To be honest, if you literally broke off this top bit of the tip here and re-profiled maybe about 1.5 inches down and made it a little bit rounder of a tip, it would definitely look exactly like most typical tips we have on Type 18Cs. This one being a bit more narrow does give you the feeling that this was a thrust focused sword, but the lack of any kind of real reinforcement and how thin it is makes you go, nah, thrusting probably wasn't its intent, at least not for hard targets. Now, Kane Shen, I have a video up here as well, did a review on their SWMZ-1008, which is their Mark Type 15A sword that uses different hilt furniture. It uses a more of a brown grip and I believe a fishtail pommel, but they call it their 15A, but they use the exact same blade. And this is where, while Ken Shane was doing his testing, now he was doing some pretty robust testing. I think he was thrusting into a coconut. He actually snapped off the top inch of this tip. If this was really meant to be a Type 15A, which was meant to be, you know, half sorted and thrusted in between gaps in armor, a coconut shouldn't snap it off, but it did. So this is where, again, I believe that sword isn't really a 15A either, because it's not built with a 15A purpose in mind. So this thing can definitely thrust. It has a tip for thrusting, but I would be very scared to thrust with this. And I mean, I have, but it does feel like it could snap if you hit too hard of a target. And I'm really glad that even in the second revision of this sword that they rounded the tip off a bit more. It's still an acute tip, but not quite a needle tip like this one is. Now, for the sword itself and its weight, the entire sword weighs 3.2 pounds, which is, I've held lighter hand-and-a-half swords, but it's not heavy, and in two hands, this sword does feel like it comes alive in your hands. You can use it in one hand, definitely, but when you add that second hand down here near the pommel, this thing really sings. Now the blade, right out of the box, I have not touched up this sword at all. This is right out of the box. I'm gonna try to do a paper cutting test with this to test its sharpness. I'm never very good with these. Ow. Tore a little bit there, even though I actually ended up nicking my finger a little bit, because I'm never really sure how I'm... There we go. Very, very sharp out of the box. Sometimes the paper I feel like I use is like the lightest. Switch sides here. That cut in already. Tore a little bit at the start, so there's definitely one side on mine at least that feels sharper. But it is paper cutting sharp. There we go. That was a beautiful cut. All right, so it cuts paper. Let's see how it does against some different targets. So obviously, I picked another nice, cool day in order to do this cutting. It is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. We got our tatami mat. We will be testing out this really, really thick blade. I think it's gonna cut like a beast, honestly. I'm gonna do some thrusting as well, but with such a needle thin tip like that, I don't suspect that we'll have issues thrusting. I am a little concerned about whether or not the tip will remain when we're done, but we'll see how it goes. Ooh. That was really, really smooth. Let's try another one. Ooh. So far, it's really been cutting really, really well. Just really, really smooth. This one had, no, actually that's not tearing at all. It's just where the mat kind of moved a little bit. Otherwise, it, again, incredibly smooth. I think I'm hitting a little high on the blade. Gotta be a little closer. It's pretty close to the center of the blade for that percussion point. But other than that little bit of this, which actually was already there, the mat started to come apart while it was soaking. that is insanely smooth. Let's try a different target. All right, back with a pool noodle. Again, pool noodle will determine whether or not the edge is really that sharp. I generally don't have issues when I do horizontal cuts. Makes it through pool noodle pretty easily. If the edge isn't super honed, it may cause it to fall off my stand. That's a bit of an issue. But when I do descending cuts, this is really gonna see, you know, if it's sharp enough. Otherwise, I'll just push the noodle out of the way. Ooh. That was really clean. Wow. Dear goodness. Oh, wow. That was nothing. It was like it wasn't even there. My water bottle tried to run away on me. All right, standard water bottle. We'll start with the milk jug and then go down the line. That pierced through real easily. Ooh. So this one was a little different. I hit right at the cap, right here. It started to cut in, but knocked away because it hit the thickest part of the entire bottle right there. Wow. That was probably one of the longest cuts. Starting here and slicing straight down. That is an insane cutter. The tip held up for the two thrusts that I did, the very shallow thrust into the mat and the water bottle, even while the water bottle, the milk jug was hanging off the edge. So it held up. I'd be worried about thicker targets, but other than that, seems okay. Otherwise, it cut like a beast. I will note there seems to be a bit more surface scratching on this one after the Tommy mat than the others. It's not a big deal. It's superficial. It's cosmetic at best, nothing like that. And this will happen over time anyway. It's just, I normally don't see it after one tatami mat, but this one has it. After the cutting, let's give our final thoughts on this sword. So the Swordier SWMZ-1004, I'll call it their Generation 1 Type 18C. If I'm gonna rate this sword, I'd have to give it 4 Type 18C Outtakes out of 5.
Hi, I'm Luke from Emblem Arms, and I am an 18C addict. It has been 2 weeks, 3 days, and 17 hours since I got my last 18C. Holding out strong.
I gave it a solid point right off the bat for the handling of this thing, its sharpness, and its cost to value, because at $289, dear goodness, this is a value of a sword, period. $289 for such a well-built sword, really, you really can't beat it. If you want to get a Type 18C, maybe even one on a diet like this one, that has a lot of charm in and out of itself, it's hard to beat. But I did take a half point off for aesthetics, solely because it is thin for a Type 18C. The profile, it would have been on the extreme thin side for an 18C. It definitely is an 18C because, again, it's a hand and a half. It's not an 18B because it doesn't have the, you know, the full two-handed grip, which is very typical of a Type 18B. Possibly an 18A, but generally, I shouldn't say generally, but most ones that we know now have a fuller. But if you look at like the Alexandrian Type 18C, it was a hand and a half. It wasn't really a super long grip sword. It was definitely a bastard sword in its design, and this fits that. But the blade profile is very thin. So if you were looking for something, you wanted an 18C and you wanted something closer to an Alexandria, you would probably be a bit disappointed because of how thin it is. In every other way, it looks like an 18C minus the tip, and the way it handles feels like an 18C. The super flattened diamond cross section is an 18C. It's just really thin, and I think that is something to consider, because if you are looking to buy a particular type, you have a certain expectation of what it would be. And if you think by looking at photos that it's wider than what it is, most are very close to 3 inches, this is about 2.5, you'd probably be a little disappointed. You know, 2.5 at the base, I should say. Whereas I believe the Valor Arms isn't even 3 inches, but it's pretty close. It's like 2.85 or something like that. It's pretty close to 3 inches. And most of them are around that 3-inch wide base here at the base. 3-inch wide profile at the base. I also took a half point off for durability, and part of that, it's twofold. Twofold because this blade type was used, this exact blade was used in their Type 15A, and Ken Shane did break the tip off. I do have concerns about how needle thin the tip is. While I didn't break it, I also didn't do a lot of thrusting with it, but I have seen it break. The other thing that I really wanted to mention was that generally Swordier swords feel like they are very scratch resistant. I only cut like a single tatami mat and a few bottles with this, and it is coated in these surface scratches. Now, there's no way if you use your sword you get away from surface scratches. That's not really a durability issue, like it's gonna break. But there's something about this blade, because I do have other Swordier blades that are made of the same steel, or said to be the same steel type, that do not have surface scratches like this, especially after a single use. Even the Type 16A that I did my first video on, only now, after extensive use, has a few surface scratches. And I mean way less than this one after only a single use. These are superficial. They aren't gonna harm the, integrity of the blade at all. But I do find it interesting that this particular sword seems more prone to scratching than the other models from Swordier that I played with. So I took a, like quarter point off for that. So if you don't think that's a big deal, you can give that quarter point back, and therefore it's a 4.25. But in my opinion, I think people should be aware of how easily this blade does scratch. So if you're in the market for a fairly unique looking Type 18C, a little thinner, if you don't mind them a little thinner and have this nice elegant rain guard here, $289 for this sword is definitely worth it. And it's one of my more fun swords to play with. I think you'd enjoy this one. Okay, audio check. We're gonna be testing some audio as I try to figure out the best place for this. Yeah, it's cold. All right, excuse the cough. All right, testing audio. Like if I was right next to the camera, but instead I'm inside, let's make sure the audio is actually good. Maybe I should just stay inside. It's warmer in there. Oh, why is it so cold? Why, oh, why? Oh, I have no idea why I'm out here. Whose bright idea was this? It's a lot of snow so far. It is so cold outside. Oh, this was not one of my wiser decisions. And I'm sitting on a metal chair. My armor is trying to protect me from the cold. It's not working. It's not working. But, what are you gonna do? Hopefully a blade doesn't freeze. Watch it shatter just as I'm doing this. If only you were... Oh, I'd redo that again. Blech. The point is not reinforced, and this would not be... It would not work for its intended purpose if it was a Type 18 or a Type 15. Blech. Scratch all that. Neighbor is plowing snow and making a lot of noise, and I don't know if it's being picked up. So I'm gonna wait for him to finish. Dun, 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 dun. Maybe sometime soon he'll finish. He's probably gonna come back up, so I have to wait even longer. That gives me time to read my notes. Freezing myself out here. Can't get my armor down. All right.
Hi, I'm Luke from Emblem Arms, and I am an 18C addict. It has been 2 weeks, 3 days, and 17 hours since I got my last 18C. Holding out strong. You know, I mean, addiction is such a dirty word. I mean, I could really stop whenever I wanted to. How would I describe the 18C? I mean, how would you really describe the pinnacle of beauty? Are there words that the English language can convey to express the depth of amazingness that is the 18C? Do you like winning at your cutting competitions? I mean, if you don't have an 18C, are you even trying? This I mean, this could be anything. It doesn't have to be an 18C. I mean, this, on the other hand, I mean, let's just pretend you didn't see this. Like I was saying, I could stop whatever I want.